and welcome to our 5th episode of...
Oh,
yes.
That was 10. Math is hard. Counting is hard.
We gotta start with our fingers. We haven't made it past our fingers in
I'm
the
still
counting.
still working on colors. And coloring in the lines. I've never been a good one for coloring in the lines.
In any sort of way.
No. Yeah, we're going to actually hope that we can get through this because the neighbors to us are redoing their driveway and literally the whole building will start shaking. Mm-hmm. So,
the world's not ending. It's not Armageddon. It's just repaving a parking lot.
Yeah. Yep. No.
While we're doing our podcast.
Of course.
Oh, I'm Dia Kappelman.
I am Jenny Olsen-Payton.
We're the ones who can't do math or color in the lines.
Yep.
And this is that kind of podcast.
Yay!
And I have to tell you, because I'm going to start complaining. And so before I start complaining, you called me last night and you said, I'm thinking about doing Slenderman, I don't know. And I was so excited for you because I was going, oh, that's a great way. We talked about starting in October and how that's a wonderful story for going into a creepy season. And I was so excited for you and a little bit distracted that a couple hours later, it occurred to me that I know exactly 3 things about Slenderman, about the story you're going to tell. I know it's based off an urban legend.
Yes. A creepypasta, to be exact.
A creepypasta. I know that the story, the murder, is horrendous.
And not a murder. Little girl
She survived.
She survived.
That's right. Because I don't know that much about it.
Yep.
But it's about a little girl, which is awful. And I hate the Slenderman. I find the idea creepy. I won't look at the images. They're super creepy. And so when everything kind of slowed down a couple hours later, I was like...
I was really surprised you were game. To be quite
honest.
I
was distracted.
I know. I was like, I think I'm going to do Slenderman. And I yes!
That's great.
All right. Does this open the door to more unsolved paranormal?
No, you just have to get me at the right time. And all this morning I've been dreading it because I'm like, I fucking hate the Slenderman. And now it's going to be emblazoned everywhere. When you do our crap. We're going to sit here and talk about it. So
I actually might do some photoshopping.
I'm not going to look at our social media for a week.
Well, so that's how it actually got started. In 2009, a guy named Eric Knudsen uploaded a bunch of photoshopped images of this tall, gangly,
creepy,
pale, faceless guy.
Creepy.
Now,
I can't overemphasize the creepy.
Well, you knew about the tendrils too, right?
Fuck.
So when he gets mad, tendrils come out and can actually grab you. So have you ever heard of a book called The Ghastly Crumb Tinies?
No.
The Ghastly?
No, I haven't.
Crumb. So it's one of my favorite books. It's by Edward Gorey.
Of course it is.
Okay, so this is like the ultimate. It is like A is for, I can't even remember all of them, but it was like A is for Allison that got eaten alive. Or E is for Eva who got eaten alive. I mean, like it's all of these, it's an ABC book.
I mean, that's a good way to raise your children.
About children that get, like, fall into peril.
Because of the Slenderman or just in general?
Just in general. Because it was written a long time ago. A lot longer than this is. But the cover is all these little kids under a very tall, thin man with an umbrella. And it looks just like Slenderman. So,
I'm going to have an attitude this entire podcast, just
remember,
so you know. And it's my own doing.
It's your own doing.
I know.
It's your own doing.
That's why I had to preface it to say, this is why I was excited, but
I gave you like multiple options.
You really did.
Yeah. One of them was actually going to be the historic one, which is really not that scary.
No, and I chose the scary one.
You did.
At that point, you should have asked me, are you okay?
Are you drinking? Dia, are you drinking again?
That would have been the most important question.
Oh my gosh. So,
all right.
2009, Eric Knudsen uploaded some photoshopped pictures of children basically running from Slenderman, or basically there's like one that's a playground and kids are like sliding and playing, and in the background you see Slenderman. So it started to kind of take its own life and all of these people started adding to it.
Because of Reddit, right?
It was something called it was a page called Something Awful.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's kind of very similar to Reddit. So people started adding into the story, and it quickly became this like urban legend. It's probably one of the most popular of the creepypastas. And it's just kind of a new way in which, you know, urban legends were told from generation to generation. And with the introduction of technology, it was just kind of a new way for these urban legends to kind of take root and take hold. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we have Slenderman.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There we go.
He is actually...
Thank you for the history lesson, but let's get to the
attempted murder.
Mm-hmm, the hard part.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, for you, it might be Slenderman himself that is the hard part.
It is.
Yeah. So he's often found in woods, or often said to be found in woods,
which is super creepy because I love the woods.
Yeah, yeah. And then
I'm not going running again for a couple of months after this.
Oh, mental note. It's a good thing that I have a bad back because it would be so much fun to just like sneak up on you in the...
I would kill you. I'm not even joking.
I have no doubt.
I would kill you. Okay, I'm going to try and let you tell your story. So far, all I've done is...
Complain. You are the Karen of the story today.
All right. So, zipping it.
So basically, we have this mythical creature that really took hold in the internet and took the internet by storm. And it has become something that there have been numerous movies made about it. There's actually been a fiction film written about it. And then there's also been numerous films about kind of the folklore of Slenderman. Yeah, he's pretty creepy. He's pretty creepy. Mm-hmm. So especially that he has tendrils that he can reach out and grab kiddos.
You already talked about that.
I know. I just wanted to make sure you remembered.
I remember.
So we're going to talk about the Slenderman Stabbing. And this happened in 2014 in Waukesha, Wisconsin. So I'm apologizing if I'm slandering some of these names.
Waukesha?
Waukesha? Waukesha.
How would you say it if you were in Wisconsin?
Waukesha, Washington.
How would Rose's family, Rose and Island's family say this? Waukesha, don't you know?
Don't you know? Yeah.
I'm so sorry to our neighbors up north. They still subscribe.
Okay, so this happens. 3 teenage girls, actually preteens, they were all 12, were having a slumber party. They were actually celebrating one of the girls' birthdays, and that girl was named Morgan Geyser. So Morgan and Peyton Leutner. Again, I'm sorry if I'm slandering his name. So it's bad. I'm not a name pronouncer. I promise. Pronunciation is hard.
Along with math and coloring.
So they're in 4th grade, and they actually met in 4th grade. So Peyton and Morgan met in 4th grade and became close friends. Peyton saw her sitting alone a lot and decided that nobody should be sitting alone. So she kind of joined her and became friends. Pretty soon, it was very sweet. Peyton, I've watched a couple interviews with Peyton, and she's kind of a badass. I'm really, when the guy asked, he goes, "Do you think you're a survivor?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, I am." And I'm like, "Damn straight you are, honey." So yeah, she's a pretty nice. She seemed like a pretty nice little girl.
She lit up a room.
I'm telling you, don't ever light up a room. So by 6th grade, so they met in 4th grade. By 6th grade, Anissa Wire joined the girls and became kind of a trio. Peyton was not a big fan of Anissa. Just plain and simply. She said she was cruel, she was mean, and she became obsessed with Slenderman. And so because of that, the relationship with Morgan, they became very tight. And they almost started sharing a delusion. They believed Slenderman was real and that they needed to prove themselves to him so that they could become his proxy and move into the house in the woods with him.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this all takes place on May 31st, 2014. They actually had a plan. They've been planning for months to kill Peyton in Slenderman's honor. For months. They actually had code words for, they called the knife Cracker, and they called the actual murder Itch. So like they would have these intricate conversations basically about this murder using code words.
I'm two 12-year-old girls being able to keep a secret for months is shocking.
And they were not normal. When you watch their interviews after it happens, Morgan is very, very obviously she was later diagnosed with schizophrenia, and it's pretty dang obvious in the interviews.
So she was already mentally had some issues that the other one was preying on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's just really it's interesting, and we'll kind of get into why it makes things more interesting later on. Okay. So May 30th, 2004, May 31st is when everything went down. They actually planned to kill her on May 30th before the slumber party actually happened, but they had been roller skating all day, and they decided they were a little too tired. So then they were gonna stab her in the neck while she slept. Too tired, fell asleep.
How messed up is that you are 12 years old and you're too tired from roller skating?
Yep, to commit
that
murder.
You can't. Yes.
Yeah. Jeez. You would think the 12-year-old would have a little more stamina.
Okay, well, that's not where I was going with it, but I was going with the whole there's roller skating versus
it's
murder.
It's tragic. It's like one of those you make jokes, or at least I make jokes about it to deal with the fact that we are talking 12-year-old preteens. And when you see their pictures, they look like little girls. I mean, they look like...
Because they're 12. But
they're
you
12.
Do bring up a good point about the stamina of a 12-year-old. I would expect a little bit more out of them.
Yes.
It's a good point. It's a valid point.
So then the 31st, they wake up and they decide that they're going to go and play in the woods. They first stop by the park, and they decide they're going to go into the bathroom in the park, which, again, never a good idea. Where Anissa decides to push Peyton and try to knock her unconscious against a concrete wall. It didn't work. Peyton got really mad and was actually, they said she was pacing in circles and was just really angry, but yet they still talked her into going deeper into the woods where they wanted to play hide and seek. So
they're playing hide and seek. This is like the roller skating thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead with your story.
Thank you, Karen. So they're in the woods. They go deeper. They're hiding, and Anissa says to Peyton, "Go ahead and cover yourself up with branches and leaves so you can hide better." So Peyton goes ahead and does that, and then next thing you know, Morgan jumps on her and begins stabbing her. She stabs her 19 times.
So Morgan is the one that does the stabbing, even
Correct.
though Morgan is the one that knew Peyton the longest.
Yes. And that's what when I first read, the first article I read, I thought the girls had been switched. I was like, well, that makes sense if they didn't get along. But then when I found out it was actually, they were best friends for years. And really until Anissa came into the situation.
So we're in trouble if somebody ever tries to make a trio out of us.
Yeah, I'm telling you what. The bookcase.
Dang bookcase.
Watch your back. So they end up, so Morgan jumps on her, stabs her 19 times. The doctors say that there were 2 organs that were hit. I believe it was her kidneys and her liver, if I remember correctly. And that it was so close to her heart that if the knife went the width of a human hair more, she would have died. So she was stabbed all over the place. Anissa turned to her and said, "Okay, go ahead and just lay down and be quiet. We're going to go get help, and you won't bleed as much if you do that."
Okay.
The girls take off walking, and they end up walking 5 miles. They're looking for the house of Slenderman so that they can join him. When the police finally catch up with them, they're sitting on the side of a highway.
How did the police catch up? How did the police know to look for them?
I'm glad you asked that.
Okay.
So Peyton, being the badass that she is, crawls to an opening. They said, one article I read, it was quite a ways that she ended up crawling. She would pull herself up on trees, and then kind of walk as much as she could, fall down, and then literally crawl as far as she could get. She finally got to an opening on a dead-end road where a bicyclist found her. I listened to the 911. I'm not a huge 911 tape person, but I listened to the 911 tape, and it was heartbreaking because the guy was like an older gentleman. I mean, he was probably in his 60s or 70s. He was just riding his bike, and he comes across this little girl who's bleeding extensively, laying in the middle of the ground. And, you know, so he's on the phone with 911, and even 911 goes, I've come across, you know, he's like, there's a 12-year-old girl that's been stabbed. And then the other dispatcher goes, what? And he goes, stabbed. And he's like, stabbed? And then you hear the old guy, they patch the gentleman through, and he's saying, you know, I just found her. She has her eyes open. She's still breathing, but she's saying she's having a hard time breathing.
Yes.
Yes. So, and when you think about it, like, with all of the movement, it is a miracle that none of those stab wounds broke open more. I mean, like, ripped.
Well, they probably did.
I know, but still.
But how much blood was she losing? Because I would have thought with 19, she would have lost a lot of blood, but I guess not.
It was a surprising, I mean, because even the guy was like, he's like, is there blood? And the guy's like, her shirt's wet, there's blood on her shirt. And so they actually had a picture of her shirt, and it was really sad. It was like a little heart. It was the yellow shirt and a heart. It said something about being kind, and like the hole around the heart was bloody. I mean, but it really, for 19 stab wounds, I'm still amazed that it was not more.
I gotta be honest, I don't know much about stabbing or stab wounds.
Thank God.
Yes, that I'm gonna admit on tape. But 19 seems like a lot to miss vital organs.
Yes.
So, well done for not doing it, but you also did a really bad job at your job. You literally had one job, was to kill her, and 19 tries and you still couldn't do it.
Well, and I imagine some of it had to do with her, the fact she was covered in leaves, and so some of those probably helped.
She couldn't see where she was standing.
And then quite a few of
them...
Don't
defend her.
Believe me, I'm not defending her.
But no, that makes sense.
And then there was also a lot that were two extremities. So like her legs and her arms.
Oh, so they're including that as well. So defensive wounds.
Defensive wounds,
Okay.
So, so she got, so they rushed her to the hospital, where she was immediately pulled into surgery, had a 6-hour surgery. Thankfully, she survived.
Wow.
When she woke up, her first words were, "Where are they? Have they been caught?" I mean, she was concerned about that. Thankfully,
you have to be terrified.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. So the girls were taken in, and they were interviewed separately. Morgan's interview is very creepy. There are a couple of times in which she starts singing to herself, and she's in a room and she's like playing hopscotch by herself. She's very
hopscotch,
making a lot of hand movements, like almost like itsy bitsy spider type of thing. And then some of the things, and I wanted to make sure I got them correctly, some of the things she said during her interrogation. People who trust you become very gullible. It was sort of sad. And then when she was asked what happened, she said, stab, 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 stab. It was weird. I felt no remorse. I thought I would. I actually felt nothing. And then one of the first things she asked was, is she dead? And she does it in this little girl voice. I mean, and I don't know if she uses that voice again later on, because it took years for them to actually get into court. But she said, is she dead? I was just wondering, was one of the first things she asked. And then when she was asked again, she said, I might as well just say it. We were trying to kill her. So she was very, very to the point, very disassociated from the situation. And it was just a very, very odd interview. Some of the things that her parents said, and I am definitely not going to, you never think your kid is going to do something like this. I don't care. I mean, you don't think this is going to happen. They've always said that she was very detached, but nothing emotionally from things, but never they thought she was just kind of an awkward kid, kind of an outsider. They said she watched Bambi the first time, and instead of being upset about the mom getting killed, she was like, run, Bambi, run and save yourself. I mean, so that kind of mentality
But you still don't go from detached to murder. Yeah.
No, and it's as a parent, you don't even want to, especially, and you don't know if your kid's getting picked. I mean, like, there's so many variables. I don't think anybody knew this was something that was possible.
I wonder if it was because schizophrenia doesn't typically present until a little bit later.
Yep.
So I wonder if there were any other signs, or if...
Yeah, she was specifically, her dad was schizophrenic. So,
she was already... So they should have, and I don't know. I can't say should have because she's not my child. I wasn't in that situation, but I would think that you would try to be a little more aware of those cues then.
Right.
And
right. Well, and you know, and again, as coming from a kid who was a very dark child who had a very vivid imagination,
you might have fallen into that category of
I'd like to say, I mean, like, I never thought. I always thought it would be nice if something like that. You know, it's like you live in a fantasy world. You're like,
what part of this would be nice? Maybe some clarification.
Thank you. The fact that there's a fantasy world and there's a supernatural and there's things, not necessarily Slenderman, but, you know, like, I'm thinking like Never-Ending Story. You know, things that are like, you know, I open a book and I can fall into a world, another world.
Okay.
Especially when you're picked on as a kid or whatever. So there's always a certain.
The make-believe, the fantasy world that you want to live in.
But most people know that line. And, I mean, like, even I remember being 12 and having a very vivid imagination, especially I talk a lot about the ocular migraines I had, in which I thought things were hanging from the trees. And, you know, so you can diverge and be like, what if things really were hanging from the trees? I never thought something was hanging from the trees. I never thought there was a monster under my music teacher's piano.
Yes.
I thought it'd be really cool if there was, but I didn't go down that bunny hole. Or the rabbit hole.
No, I like bunny hole.
Bunny hole.
It's cute.
Yeah. So, but you never, like I said, you never know that what could happen. So in Wisconsin, the kid, if you're over 10 and attempt murder, you can be tried as an adult. Good. And so that's what they decided they were going to do. Good. So originally they both pled not guilty. They ended up then taking a plea.
How would you plead not guilty to that?
I know.
Defense attorneys, man.
I'm telling you what, I've dealt with a couple. Not pretty at all. So they ended up finally taking a plea deal in which they had to admit guilt. And they were actually then, the delusion was so severe, they actually were, I don't remember how they worded it, but it was almost like they couldn't be declared guilty because of mental insanity, essentially.
Which I get before both of them, or just for Morgan?
For both of them.
So Anissa, she had those delusions as well, or she just like slid in under the.
That is, again, I can't say.
Debatable.
I don't know. I know she was very in the videos that I watched. Morgan seems very over the top. Like she is. The judge is talking to her, and she's talking in a really little voice, and she's crying, and she's holding herself like this, and she's
she's maybe playing into the schizophrenia a little bit more, knowing how her dad was, so how she could.
I mean, unfortunately, I'm jaded enough. That's my thought process. I don't know. I don't know. It could be the schizophrenia. Anissa was very reserved and very polite and very calculating. And I don't mean calculating in a bad way. Just, I mean, like the judge would ask her something and you could actually hear her processing what to say. You know, and at one point she made some slip up and it was like, I mean, it was an innocent slip up, I'm sure, but it was something like she took the blame. I can't remember what it was, but it was something like, yeah, we did this, and then she corrected herself to make herself seem, I mean, it was just
backpedaled on it.
Yeah, it was interesting.
But she has to be fairly calculating, fairly intelligent in that aspect, because she got into the middle of two good friends and was able to divide them to her purpose. It sounded more like it was her mission, and she just found Morgan, who was maybe a little more vulnerable to that. And
correct.
So it sounds like she would be more of the mastermind behind it anyway.
Correct. So it was, it was interesting. So both girls were then in part of the plea deal. They were both sentenced to time in a mental institution. So
how long?
Anissa was sentenced to 25 years. Okay. She got out in 2021.
What?
Yeah. She got out in 2021.
She masterminded a murder?
Attempted murder, yep.
Attempted murder, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. So, yeah, I'm really torn about it. I did listen to some of the hearing, I guess, and it was very, I mean, she had been through everything that the mental institution could provide her with. When it came through to help, she was excelling at everything. She admitted that what it was a delusion. I know.
Half the stories that we have covered
I know
on our podcast have been these people getting out because the professionals have said,
yeah.
Oh no, they're fine now.
Yep. No, I know. So when she was released, the family was very disappointed, but they were relieved because she needed, part of that was she had mandatory psychiatric care. She had GPS tracking. She moved in with her dad, so her dad was supposed to be helping watch, and she was to avoid any contact with Peyton until 2039. So,
why is there an until?
I know.
On to that. You tried to murder her. There should not be any until.
I agree. I mean, I think
that's really shitty that so Peyton in 2039 probably has to be the one to petition for another restraining order or whatever it is that keeps her away. So the victim is the one that has to now do the paperwork to say, I actually don't want my attempted murder around me. Is that cool? You guys cool with that?
Yeah, no. And like I said, I am very, very torn on this case. And it is one that, I don't know. I have spent a lot of time working with kiddos in the system. Mm-hmm. I have seen kids that have overcome such insanity when it comes to being raised, come out of it beautiful, very well adjusted mm-hmm. human beings. I've seen some kids that have not, and we're not at 12, 13, and 14, but later became good people.
Yes.
So I'm very, very torn on this case. I'm very torn. There's nothing good that comes out of it other than Peyton's outlook on things as of now. Morgan was diagnosed with early onset schizophrenia. She continued to hear voices up until for the trial. I want to say the trial didn't take place until 2015, and then there was some other kind of thing that went on in 17. There was a lot of just kind of touching base trial-wise. She claimed that she could communicate telepathically with fictional characters like Harry Potter and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mm. So she had a very... she was not able to really kind of step out of the delusion.
My 4-year-old says the same thing.
Earlier this year, Morgan, 2022, earlier this year, Morgan requested early release. The judge decided that she was, now keep in mind, she had 40 years.
She had 40 years.
She got 40 years.
Since she was the one that actually
she stabbed
it. Okay.
Yeah, and it was, she used a kitchen knife. She went to the woods knowing she was going to stab. Mm-hmm. So the judge said, okay, in order to consider this, you need we're going to hire 3 independent mental, doctors to basically do a mental evaluation.
That seems fair.
Yep. They got the first one back, and both Morgan and the judge withdrew the petition, saying that she needed to do some more work. So
after the first one
got back.
It didn't even get to 3. Okay.
No. So, but it says something that Morgan and her family both were like, okay, we need to do some more work.
Yes.
And wasn't able to dive too deep into it, but Morgan's mom is now a huge advocate for child mental health.
Good.
And as well as like helping in the justice system. So there was some good that came out of it there. Peyton,
I do have to say that's very impressive of Morgan's family to step into that role, because most families, it seems like they want to deny or avoid.
Yeah.
Whereas she's saying there was an issue, it was wrong. Now let's fix it for other people. That's admirable.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, as you go back, we're both parents. You just don't know. I mean, I circumstances. You just don't know what your kids are capable of. And you would love to think that they're not, but but with the way society is today, with the fact that they're growing up with social media. I mean, I was very bullied when I was a kiddo, and you know, my parents, God love them, decided to transfer me from a very, very poor school to a Catholic school in
It's worse than private school.
In 5th grade. 5th grade girl. So
no, it's worse.
It was bad. And I remember times there was, you know, I get prank calls, and there was one time, and I just remember the phone rang, and I started screaming, and I couldn't stop screaming just because I didn't know what to do with all the anger and rage. I didn't have social media. It turned off. We could take the phone off the hook.
Yes. Yeah.
Kiddos today don't have that luxury. And so you just don't know what all the factors are. And then the fact that it is very difficult for them to sometimes be able to tell the difference between fake and not and real. I mean,
in your formative years, they're still young. They're still figuring all of this out, and you're being bombarded with all these theories and thoughts, and your adolescent mind can't differentiate sometimes.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not, I mean, there are some cases that you look at it. For instance, we're going to cover like the Dahmer movie. There are cases in which you see parents that are actively putting their head in the sand. Mm-hmm. And this, I don't think, I have a hard time blaming. I can't blame anybody. I mean, I blame Morgan for the actions. I blame, you know, Anissa for the actions. They decided to do that. They were 12, you know, and that does not excuse anything. That's not okay. But, and there's no but to that. I mean, it's not okay. All you can do is move on and learn from it, and
which it sounds like her family did. Yeah. Well, but how is Peyton in all of this?
Peyton is a rock star. So Peyton was interviewed in 2019, and she was just the pictures, and we'll share some of it in the social media. She was smiling. She was a survivor. As I mentioned earlier, the guy's like, so are you a survivor? And she's like, yeah, I am. And she also she is said that she is grateful that this happened because of the fact that she now has a passion for the medical field, which is what she wants to go into. Wow. So last I heard, she was in college. She was doing really well. Beautiful smile, beautiful.
Sounds like a beautiful soul.
Beautiful soul.
She's growing from.
Yeah, she definitely.
Wow.
Yeah. So there is a lot
That's impressive.
There's a lot of good there. So, you know, it's a hard case. I mean, it could have ended so much different.
At that.
Yeah.
Look, we started off talking about the Slender Man and how awful it was, but now I have a little bit of warm and fuzzy in there. Just one.
Yeah.
I can only allow one at a time.
One at a time.
My black heart won't take any more. But
yeah, that's
the most maybe heartwarming story that we've done.
It is probably.
And it was about the fucking Slender Man.
Yes.
I hate him.
Yep. Well, I try to make it good.
You made it really good.
So yeah, I mean, and like I said, I would love to say, you know, watching my kids grow up, and I'm very grateful. None of this, we never dealt with anything like this, but watching my kids grow up and seeing some of the kids that they surrounded themselves with, and some of those situations, it's not an easy thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not, you know, they're taking the responsibility in the best way that I think they can.
Yes.
I don't think they necessarily needed to be in prison. They needed some major mental health work, and it sounds like they're working on it. So, hey,
we can be optimistic about it. It sounds like Morgan is on the right track, and we can be optimistic about Anissa or Anissa. I feel like I'm messing that up every time.
I know.
But with a name like Dia,
I think it's Anissa.
Okay. But with Anissa, I mean, hopefully she has, and we won't be talking about her on our podcast in 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely hope it is a different story, and I hope that Peyton is able to just kind of put it past her and move on, and just, it could have ended so much differently, and
go Peyton.
Yeah.
Team Peyton.
Team Peyton all the way. Mm-hmm. Team Peyton all the way. So, that's
all right.
The Slenderman Stabbings.
Oh.
We're going to use that to kick off October, because I love myself some October.
You do. And we had kind of discussed it, and now we decided that we are going to give our commentary on the Dahmer series on Netflix a great way to keep going into October.
Yep.
And I have some stuff to say. And I don't know that it's going to be a popular opinion.
Okay, Karen. We're just going to start calling you Karen.
Jenny Olsen Payton and Karen. No, I have some very strong opinions, and I'm kind of getting fired up about it. And the more that I watch these episodes, the more fired up I'm getting.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that next week. So stay tuned. Make sure we're going to split it into 2 episodes. The first 5 episodes of Dahmer next week. Yep. And then 6 through 10 the week after that.
Yep.
So make sure you're caught up so you know what we're talking about.
Yep. Or what Dia will be complaining about. So.
Yes.
All right. So do us a favor. Subscribe. We definitely love hearing from all of you.
On all the things.
On everything.
YouTube, Apple, Spotify. YouTube. I just said that.
You
do it twice.
YouTube, Apple, YouTube.
Did I say YouTube? You can go on YouTube, actually.
Hey, where is this going to be posted?
YouTube.
Okay, there you go. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Definitely follow on your favorite streaming podcast. We're also on Amazon.
We are.
For us Android people that don't use Apple. And
judging.
I'm not judging. I'm not the Karen in this situation.
I will own it. I'll be back next week with a different haircut. I'll have the full-on angled haircut.
The Kate plus 8.
Yes. You just wait. It's going to be good.
I need to speak to your manager.
That's how we'll start. That's what we'll name the next episode.
Yes.
Jeffrey Dahmer. I need to speak to the manager.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be real fun.
We'll see you next week.
Have a great day.